This is Gemar and Yoma, Daf Tesvav, all the learning this month of Iyar, the month of Skulos for Refuah, Shbias Chos for Shlema, for Rivka Bas Sheva, as well as Naftali Siv and Michal Esther, a generous sponsor of the Daf. Mir Hashem, the learning of the entire Chabura, which Baruch Hashem, as we keep on mentioning, keeps on growing. The feedback for the review sheets, the summary sheets, has been fabulous. I hope everyone is getting new clarity, new Chazara, and should be a tremendous Chos for Shlema, for Rivka Bas Sheva, as well as Naftali Siv and Michal Esther. As well as this week has continued to be sponsored for Sarah Bas Kila, Baruch Hashem, she as well is recovering nicely, and we're hoping she will be out of the hospital very, very soon. Finally, the rest of our Chayyim, many B'mega Chaim, Mesaj, on Stephen, Reisa, Sarah Bas Kenendel, is Basim, Schaysa, Yisol, B'mindel, the President Shalei, Shemas, Samei, Shafavik, Shulchan of Olavin, Iteriva, Shmo, Ben Tilo, Dinim, Chan, Rizim, Chai, Bas Bina, Libracha, Tavim, Musa, Adinaida, Bachin, Mindel, Sim, Chotovia, Ben Avigav, Fasha, Stephen, Veged Vera, Mechel, Nisi, Per, Natatili, Huva, Menachamenta, Ben Toba, Bisay, Shar, Chali, Yisrael, was the Choshirach, for Ataleah, Bas Ita. So we're over here on Yudalit Mebeis. We're middle of a discussion. You see in front of you, if you're looking at the screen, you'll see that the bottom half of Yudalit Mebeis, we highlighted here the main points. We're middle of discussing what came first. Did the Ketayrim come first, or did the Neiros come first? From our Mishnah, when the Mishnah was listing all that which the Kohen Gadol did for the 7 days, preparing himself for the Avodah, it said he first burnt the Ketayris, and then he lit the Menorah. Or I shouldn't say lit, I should say prepared the Menorah. The problem was, he was a steer to the Gemara in Talmud, and then there was a problem. There was a stira to the Mishnah in Yoma later on by us. So Abaye answered, which is we're middle of Abaye, about 10 lines to the bottom, answered, one is Atava Shtei Neiros, one is Ataris Chamesh Neiros. That basically in between the 7 Neiros, they took a break and they did something. So Abaye is learning that they did 5. Then they burnt the Keteris. Then they did the final, then he, the Kohen Gadol, did the final 2 Neiros. But the Gemara was bothered that Abaye himself seemingly said that not the Keteris is that which separates, but rather the sprinkling of the dam of the Talmud is separates. So the Gemara answers, Ahula Abashol, Halu Rabbanan. And that's where we pick up 6 lines in the bottom, explaining that Abba Shaul is the one that learns that the separation of the 2 to the 5, the 5 and the 2 I should say, is the throwing of the dam at Talmud. Whereas the Rabbanan hold no, that the Keteres is that which separates the burning of the 5 and then the 2. The Tanya, as we learned in a Raisa, Loyitav Esani Rice, should not prepare the candles, Vachach Yaktir, and then burn the Keteres. El Yaktir, rather burn the Keteres. Vachach Yitav, and then prepare the Neiros. And again, really what that means is, it doesn't mean that you should do the entire Atavas and Neiros. It means that you should do the 5, and then you should do the burning the Keteres, and then you should do the final 2. Abashal Oimer becomes like Abashal, that he says, Meitiv Achikach Maktir, that what do? First you do the Atavas of the Neiros, and then you're going to then you're going to burn the Keteris. Because this is the reason that Abashal, again, I'm sorry, we're not being clear. Abashal said that the 5 and the 2 is separated by the Dam HaTamid, which means that Abashal learns that where's the Keteris? After everything. That's the Nekuda. So says the Gemara, Abashal Leimer, you're Meitiv, and then you do the Keteris, because Abashal learns the Keteris comes afterwards. Whereas according to the Ketana Tzikama, according to the Rabbanan, it's not true. The Keteris comes smack in the middle. Says the Gemara, my time with Abashal, where did Abashal get this halacha, get this din? The Keteris is after the preparation of the Menorah, and the Dam HaTamid is in the middle. It says in the Torah, says each and every day when you're preparing the candles, and then the pasuk concludes, Vahadar Yakti Renu, says Abashal, first the preparation, then Yakti Renu, then you're going to be burning the Keteres, Shitas of Abashal, that the Keteres comes after everything. V'Rabbanan, and what do the Rabbanan hold? Maika Mar Rachmana, says the Rabbanan, turning over today's Daf Tezvav, Be'idon Hatava, Temak the Keteres, while you're doing the Hatava, you should be burning the Keteres. They don't learn that it's afterwards, they learn it's in the middle. So Rabbanan learn that in the midst of the preparation of the candles is when you're going to be burning the Keteres. He says the Gemara, the Rabbanan prove their Shita, the Rabbanan that whole that the Keteris is in middle of the preparation of the candles. If you're not going to say like me, what does it say by the ladder? Sorry, by the latter preparation of the Menorah. And Aaron is preparing the candles in the evening. Yaktirenu, and it as well concludes Yaktirenu. So according to Abba Shal, what would the pasuk mean? It would sound like prepare the Neiros, Yaktirenu, and after all the Neiros, you should burn the Ketores. Similar to what Abba Shal learned by us, that you prepare all the Neiros, then you burn the Ketores. What's the problem? Say the Chachamim, are you going to learn like I just said, like Abba Shal would learn, that you first do all the candles and then you prepare the Ketores Shalbin Arabayim? It can't be. Why not? Maybe it could be. Vatania, we have a brisa that says the Rabbanan. Me erev ad boiker says in the Torah. 10 lums. So we learn two things from this pasuk. Me erev ad boiker, which is obviously written in conjunction. If you see on the side that it says that Shali Dusla Aruch say Arnuvara Banaf Be'erev ad boiker Hashem Chukas Elam Derisam Meis Bnei Yisrael. Says the Gemara, din number 1, 10 lamidasa shedei lekas v'lekas kol halayla. You have to put enough oil inside the candles that it could burn the entire night, which we'll just point out very quickly. Does that mean, let's just say Rashi's opinion, that you put in enough oil that every night you have to put enough oil in according to the longest nights, meaning in the winter the nights are much longer. So that's the quantity of oil that you have to put in every single night. Does that mean that they had leftover oil? Perhaps. Taisis Yishanimir points out that they would change the size of the wick summer, winter to compensate, but that's din number 1. This is what we need it for. This is the only avodah overnight. Says the Chachamim, what did we just see? We just saw that after the Menorah, nothing is allowed to be done. According to you, Abba Shal, according to the way that you learned the pasuk, you know what should come out. You should first do the Menorah and then burn the Ketores. But that can't be, because the Menorah has to be last. So therefore, Elamai says the Chachamim Kamerachmana Bidan Allah Katimakti Ketores. So you know how either Rabbanim are going to tell you have to learn at the pasuk? That doesn't mean after Yakti Renu, that after you do the Menorah you burn the Ketores. Rather means during the preparation of the Menorah you burn the Ketores. Hachanami says the Chachamim Binatavate Makti Ketores. While you're preparing the Menorah in the morning, you burn the Ketores. So again, how did the Rabbanan learn? The Rabbanan learned that the pasuk says, "V'halos Aaronos haniros b'nei Arbaim yaktirenu." A similar pasuk, that which we saw in Amin Aleph, in that which is said, "Ba'boker tivos haniros yaktirenu." So Abba Shal learns yaktirenu is after the neiros. Says the Chacham, that can't be, because then at the nighttime, yaktirenu is also going to be after the neiros, and we know from the pasuk of me'erev ad boker that the menorah has to be last. So says the Chacham, we must have to retranslate the pasuk to be referring to that the Ketores has to be within the process of preparing the menorah. How does Abba Shal answer? In the evening it says Oisai, and that's the reason why you can learn out from it, because over there it's Oisai, it is the last thing and nothing else. But by the morning it does not say Oisai, so Abba Shal has no problem learning that the Ketores is after the entire preparation of the Menorah. That was Abaye's resolution, Abaye's answer to the contradiction between our Mishnah in Yoma and the Mishnah later on at Daf Chavhei with regard to whether the Ketores comes first or whether the Menorah comes first. Rav Papa Amar comes like Rav Papa with a second teretz. Loikasha harabanan ha'Abba Shal. Says Rav Papa, it's going to sound a bit similar at first. Says Rav Papa, the resolution is between the Rabbanan and Abba Shal. But Mayu Kimte Lemasnisan Dahachak Rabbanan. How do we know? I'm sorry, but Mayu Kimte Lemasnisan Dahachak Rabbanan. Payis Kabba Shal. That our Mishnah is going to be like the Rabbanan, whereas the Mishnah of Payis and Daf Chavhei is going to be like Abba Shal. So what's the problem with that? Says the Gemara, you know what the problem with that is? Says the Gemara, Ema Seifa, but there is a third Mishnah after all the Mishnahs. Let's get it straight. First of all, we have our Mishnah, we'll call it Daf Yodalid is the Rabbanan. We have a Mishnah Daf Chavhei is Abba Shal. Ema Seifa, there's a third Mishnah Daf Lamid Aleph, the latter third Mishnah. Hevihu lo es tamid. You bring the carbon tamid. What do? Karza yumarak achar shchita al yadai, that you shecht the animal After you shech the animal, then kartzai means that you make the cut. Then umeirik achashchita. Then another kayin is going to spill out the rest of the dam. Nichnas lahaktiras hakteres. Then the kayin gadol comes in to do the ketores. Ulehitiv es haneres and to prepare the neiros. What do we see? Ketores and then neiros. Who's that like? That is like the Rabbanon. That the ketores is in the middle of the neiros. So Mishnah number 1. Rabbanan Daf Yudalid. Mishnah number 2, Daf Chav Hey, Abashal. Mishnah number 3, Daf Lamed Aleph, Rabbanan, Abashal, Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, Asin the Rabbanan. Reisha V'Sefer Rabbanan Mitziyas Abashal. What in the world is going on over here? How is this possible that you're going to have 1 and 3 to be the Rabbanan, and number 2 is going to be Abba Shaul? Says the Gemara, Amar L'cha Rabba, yeah, in Reisha V'Sefer Rabbanan Mitziyas Abashal. Says Rabba, yep, that's the way you have to explain. And now we're going to see the difference between the answer of Abaye and Rabba. Says the Gemara. I understand why Abaye didn't say like this answer of Rabba. Why? As much as Rav Papa said, yeah, that's what you have to learn, is that a good answer? It's not really a great answer to have to say that the one Masechta of Yoma goes Rabbanan, Bashal, Rabbanan. That's not so great. Elo Rav Papa, my time Abaye, says the Gemara. But I have a problem. Why doesn't Rav Papa learn like Abaye? Again, what was Abaye? We quoted Abashal and Rabbanan in a second stage in Amud Beis. But Abaye's Iker Teres, Abaye's main answer was is the difference between the first 5 candles and the final 2 candles. That's how we answered up the stira. So says the Gemara, why doesn't Rav Papa say that? Rav Papa comes along and he has to dance around. Rabbanan, Abashal, Rabbanan. Why did you just say like Abaye? Answers the Gemara, answers Rav Papa, Kabaye, Amar Lecha, Tana Bereisha, Hatavas Chamesh Neiros. Says Abaye, says Rav Papa, I didn't want to learn like Abaye because it comes out, if you remember on yesterday, that the first Mishnah Daf Yudalid is discussing the final 2 candles, and then, because that's the Mishnah that said Ketores, and then the 2 candles, and then the later Mishnah is discussing the first 5 candles, and then the Ketores. So this comes out of order, says Rav Papa. According to you, Abaye, the second Mishnah, Daf Chavei, should have been first. First you tell me 5 candles, then tell me Ketores, then have our Mishnah tell me Ketores, and then the final 2 candles. So says Rav Papa, you Abaye, your way of learning is not any better. What is the answer? In our Mishnah, it's not going into the actual Avodah. It's just telling you what they're going to do. And then the actual order they say later, so it's not Shver. So again, 2 different answers. Abaye and Rav Papa had to answer up the stira, whether it's 5 and 2, or rather, it's 2 different shitas, Rabbanan Abashal. According to Rav Papa, comes out, it's Rabbanan Abashal, then Rabbanan. According to Abaye, it comes out difficult. That first we're discussing the last 2 candles, which is after the Ketores. Then the next Mishnah tells us Ketores, the first 5 candles, and then the Ketores. Says the Gemara Gufa. Let's go a bit deeper into something we spoke about yesterday. And now we'll also fix a mistake that I made yesterday. Apologies. I guess we just either read it wrong or whatever the reason was. A big ashkech to Rav Daniel for pointing this out. That that says the kohen comes to the northeastern corner. He puts the dam in the northeastern corner. Ma'arav is draimis, and that was the point that I messed up. He comes to the southwestern corner. He puts it on the southwestern corner. V'tani Allah, Rav Shimon Isha Mitzabeh, Mishnah B'tamid. First he comes to the northeast. He puts it in the northeast. Ba'arav is draimis. When he comes to the southwest, he does not put it straight on the southwest. Rather, first you put it on south, and then you put it on draima. First you put it on west, and then you put it on south. Over here, let's get this din straight. This is called a application of 1 which is 2. This is the Tanakama. You throw it on the whole corner, as you see in front of you, and it gets both parts of the corner. Achas shein shtayim, as we're going to see soon. This is Rav Shimon Mitzapeh says, no, you do one and then you do the other. You do each side independently, as you see over here. So back to our Gemara, my time is Rav Shimon Mitzapeh. Where did he get this thing from? Rav Yechon Mishem Echad, to be Rav Yanai Amar Kro, Sir Izin Echad Lechatos LaHashem, Al Oilas HaTomid Ya'aseh V'Niskoi. We see over here, very important thing. Says the Gemara that when the Torah is referring to the carbon tamid, well, what is the wording that the pasuk uses? This pasuk is a loaded pasuk. So it's an oila, but it's a chatos. What is it? It calls it an oila, it calls it a chatos. Oilahi, it's an oila, the carbon tamid. Carbon tamid no one eats. You have to do something that's similar to a chatos. What is that? A carbon oila has an application of one, which is two, like we said, you throw it on the corner. But it also needs an application of two, which is two, says Rav Shimon Mitzapeh. Like a chatos, which is south, and then west, not together. So you need an element of chatos within your oila, says the Gemara. Very good, fine. So according to Shimon Mitzapeh, the reason why you don't throw it on both corners is because you want this element of chatos, which had separate applications. Ask the Gemara, the first white line, why do they do two, which is four, like an oila? Why don't they do two times what we just said? Throw it on two corners, thereby getting four sides of the mizbeach, and then individually place it in all four corners of the kronos, of the horns, like the chatos. Says the Gemara, you know why? Because if you were to do that, you would do the entire oila. The way that an oila is done is you throw the blood on one set of corners, then the other set of corners. So if you were to do that, you'd be done. Now you did all the dam. So now you're going to take the dam and again go to each corner. We never find, says the Gemara, a concept of doing dam after you already finished with the dam. So rather, we're doing it in halves. We do one, which is two, and then we do two singulars. Says the Gemara, that's also shver. Do we ever find that you split it in half? You do one, which is two, and then you do two singular ones? Ella al karcha. So what are you going to tell me? What's the reason that we know you do one, which is two, and then one and one, which is also halves? Because we have a hakish. The Torah taught us to do that. So say the same thing and do two, which is four, and four singular ones. Answers the Gemara. Over there, it's a pisig matanas. You're splitting it up. As if we look at Rashi at the end of the narrow lines, Rashi says, it's not going to be clear that what you're doing is the carbon chatos, and therefore we don't want to do that. And therefore it's more, says Shimon Mitzapeh, it's more logical to go one, which is two, and then two singular ones, because that shows you more clearly that what you're doing is not the normal oila, but rather you're going into the chatos realm. Says the Gemara, fine. So now we understand why Rav Shimon Mitzapeh does one, which is two, and then does two singular ones, because it's doing something which an oila never does. And that's this element of tamid that we're learning out from the pasuk as an element of chatos. But I asked the Gemara, why do they do the placement like the carbon? Do it below the, as we'll see in a moment in the picture, the lower half of the mizbeach like an oila, and do two, which is two up above like a chatos. Why are we doing them straight on the corners? We should do the placement down and up. Answers the Gemara, similar to we never find blood that's half top, half bottom. He says the Gemara, yes we do, but now we learned in the Mishnah, the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur itself does achas lamala, sheva lamata, the whole song. We're going to get there. Yoma Kippur. This is the Avaida. He does one above and seven below. We'll see a picture in a moment. So what do we see very clearly? We see very clearly there is a concept of one above and seven below. Answers the Gemara, no. Don't bring me a proof from the Kohen Gadol. Why Kim Matzlif? My Kim Matzlif? Machli Rav Yehuda Kim Min Ga. Excuse me. Kim Dana sounds like Nagdonim, which are antibodies in this country. Either way, Kim Dana, like one who whips. That's the way he does it, and that's just how it falls the above and the below, but it's not actually trying to get above and below. Let's read a little more. We have a bunch of beautiful pictures, but we're running slow on time. Says Gemara v'lo is that tshuva tanan hezmen alta hayroi shel mizbeach sheva pamim. But what do we see? We see that it says the Kohen Gadol sprinkled on the mizbeach hazav 7 times. Now what does it mean that he explained? There was very interesting words. Tahayroi shel mizbeach. What does that mean? My love al palgud the mizbeach. Doesn't it mean al palgud the mizbeach on the middle? What does that mean on the middle? Doesn't mean middle, it means halfway. Like the Amri Ichi, the people talk tahar tihara, like people say the purity, the tahira of the day has come. Have a palga the Yoma, which is half of the day in the middle of the day. So what do we see? We see that the Mishnah is talking about that it's in the middle, but can't be that every single one when it's smack in the middle must mean someone above, someone below. So again, we see a precedent that some are above, some are below. Amar Rabbi Rav Shila, no, law, you don't bring me a proof from there. You know what it means? It means agufei de mizbeach. It's referring to the top of the mizbeach. That's what they did it. That's the purity. That's the tahira of the mizbeach. But we don't have again a concept of some above, some below. The Chsiv, as the pasuk says, "Uchatzem hashamayim lita hair," and therefore says the Gemara. That's what's going on by the sprinkling. Let's just see a few beautiful pictures. So over here, you see the Kohen Gadol Lamayla K'maisa Chatos. Look at that Kohen Gadol. He's on top of the mizbeach, and he's putting it on the corners, on the corners, the kranois, the horns on the corner. That's Lamalo. That's on top, like the Karban Chatos. You see further that this was the Kohen Gadol. What a beautiful picture in Yom Kippur. You see what he's doing. Zachas Lamalo and Sheva Lamata. As you see the blood over there on the Aron Kodesh itself. So this was Gemara's kasha, that we see a concept of doing one above and below. Answers Gemara, no, kimatzliv kim nigdada, he does it like a whip, and therefore that's just how where it falls, but he doesn't necessarily throw it above and below. We continued and we said, what do you mean? Maybe it's like the mizbeach, that I'll palgad the mizbeach, that it's be in the middle of the mizbeach, like you see the blood over here smack in the middle, which the Gemara brought as a raya, so obviously not going to be smack in the middle, it's going to be part above, part below. And the Gemara answered, no, that you know what it meant to Ira mizbeach. It meant on the top proper of the mizbeach. That's the next picture. Says the Gemara, Maishana what's going on over here? According to Shimon Isha Mitzapeh, why is the Kohen doing the Ayla first? And then doing Chatos. Answers the Gemara, the Ayla he Kadma Bereisha. Because it's an Ayla comes first. Says the Gemara, fine. But why did he first do northeast and then southwest? Rather, an Esav Draimis Mizrachas, Father's finest Ma'aravis. Rather, he should do southeast and northwest. How do you know which two corners to do it on? Says the Gemara, you forgot what the Mizbeach looks like. I'm sorry. Amri Ayla to Una Yisaid. You know why? Because the carbon Ayla, when you're doing the sprinkling, it has to get the Yisaid, the base of the Mizbeach. There's no Yisaid there. As you see the picture over here, let's look carefully. You see the base around the Mizbeach. In the top corner, you see the base goes. But the bottom corner, which is the southeastern corner, doesn't have a yisaid. There is no base. Therefore, there is no possibility for you to do a sprinkling there. Says the Gemara, fine. So why do you first do? Now we're asking on the order. Before we ask why those particular corners, now we're asking on the order itself. What's the reason that we first do on the Bereisha? First we're doing on the northeast, and then we're doing in the southwest. Says the Gemara, you know why? Because the Mar taught us a famous rule. Whenever you turn to the right and lemizrach to the east. Bereisha first. You reach that corner first. Let's get a picture. Let's explain this. This is a bit complicated. Let's get the picture over here. Here you see a beautiful rendition. You see Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur walking around. See all the Kohanim standing around. And you see over here that when the Kohen Gadol comes up, he comes from the southern side. Let's get a little bit further zoomed in. Here we go. We see the Kohen Gadol comes up on the southern side. Then he goes, now he's on the eastern side of the Mizbeach. Now, he's really turning left. As you see in this picture, which everyone's wondering, the Gemara said he turned right. The answer is because he always faces the Mizbeach. So if I'm facing the Mizbeach, let's say the screen, you're looking in front of me, this is the Mizbeach, and I'm like shimming across the Mizbeach this way. So now, when I have to make a left that way, I'm going to be always turning to my right. It's true that if I walk this way, it's going to be a left turn, but basically I'm going that way. But the way to do that is if I'm walking facing the Mizbeach, what's going to happen is I'm always going to be turning right in a counterclockwise position, thereby going around the Mizbeach, and that's the reason why it has to be in that order. Says the Gemara, how do you know that the pasuk, now we're going back fundamental, we're talking about the carbon tamid, and we said that the tamid, which is an ayla, has an element of chatos. Says the Gemara, how do you know that? V'delma, perhaps the chatos maybe it's talking about the chatos of Yom Tif, and it's referring to that on the chatos there's an element of ayla. And says Gemara, don't say that the pasuk says that ayla satamid yasev in iskai. My kamerachmana, something, a part of the chatos put on the oila. So that's where we learned down to the carbon tamid, which is an oila. We do an element of chatos. Now we're going to begin a new topic, which really is going to take us more into tomorrow. We're just going to begin and show a few pictures to get us a little bit into it. Tomorrow we're going to discuss it more. Tonight also we learned over there, Amar Lemamamuna. We're continuing the Avaida. The pointy Kohen Gadol tells to one of the other Kohanim, Tzuv aviu tlem yilishkas beis tlem. Bring me a tlem, bring me a lamb. And from, where does he bring a lamb from? The lishkas talaim. That's what he says. Ask the Gemara, where was the lishkas talaim, the room of all the lambs? But lishkas talaim, Isa b'miksaya, sfain is maravis. But the lambs were where? I'm sorry, this is part of the brisa. That where was the lamb? The lamb was in the northwestern corner. Va'arba lishkas ayisham. There were 4 rooms in that bigger room, which is the room of the fire, the Beis HaMoikad. Achaz lishkas hatalaim. One was the lishkas ha'atlayim, v'achas lishkas ha'chaismim, v'achas lishkas beis ha'moikad, v'achas lishkas ha'ismim lechem ha'panim. We're going to see pictures of that in a minute. So basically it said, bring me a lamb from the room of the lambs. Where was the room of the lambs? Northwest. The problem is, Raminu, arba lishkas ha'il beis ha'moikad. Mishnah Talmud says there are 4 rooms in the beis ha'moikad. Kekutinias ha'psuchas l'traklin, like smaller areas that open into a larger room. Shtayim ba'kodesh, shtayim ba'chol. 2 in an area of holy and 2 in an area of mundane. V'roshei pasasin, Mavdilin bein HaKodesh, and the top of the post separates between the Kodesh and the Chol. Excuse me. And what did these rooms do? Marav is dryness, southwestern. What did we say a minute ago? Where was the base? Where was the Lishkas Hatalaim? We said northwestern. Here it says southwestern. Lishkas Tale Karbon. That's the Kasha. We see southwestern and northwestern. Stira. Just moving along to the Zayin for a moment. Jomis Mazraches, who Lishka Shayosim and Lachapanim, Mizrach's finest. That's where I couldn't do the base Chashmai Amne Bezbeach, Shakata Malchi of the comments. So Stira, where was the room of the lambs? Amravuna Montana Midais, Rav Lazem and Yaakov. That was the town over there. Now let's see some beautiful pictures. Here is your Lishkas Talayim, the room of all the lamps. Here is the bigger base HaMoiked, as you see in the center. Here's your fire, and you see over here that they showed you that the top is Kodesh and the bottom is Chol. And now you see where are these 4 rooms. The top left is Beis Moikad, the small fire. Top right is the Chaismais. Bottom left is the Lechem Apanim, and then you have the Tlaim. Here you have a picture of, and you see the top left-hand corner, that's where they buried the stones of the Mizbeach, and over here you see the Lishkas Beis HaMoikad, which is where you see over there, those are the steps going down to be Taival in the Mizbeach. Those are the 4 rooms, and tomorrow, and we're answering that in the Mishnah and Talmud of Laz ben Yaakov, so it's not a steer to us. Tomorrow we're going to go more deeper into exactly where was this room of the lambs, and we'll pick it up from here tomorrow.